Hey, so we are back for part 4 of this deposition. I'm just going to pick up from where I left off. Okay, so Governski is asking the question, did you consider any materials that are not listed in Appendix C? For the end report, no. What does that mean for the end report? For the report you're looking at, no. But did you consider any other materials for in the course of preparing your report? In the course of preparing it, no. So Appendix C lists everything you considered in the course of preparing your report. Pritt's objection. The witness, just doing a read-through. Yes. Governski. Okay, Autumn, go ahead and let's share this on screen so at least I can look at it on the screen, please. What quality control steps did you ensure that Appendix C contained all of your sources? I used Zotero, which is a software for citation and reference clipping and storing. Okay. Is Tarot, does it include an AI feature? It's Zotero, and I do not believe it does. It's Zotero. I appreciate that. Thank you. Where you include citations in your report, strike that. You include certain footnotes with citations in your report, but a lot of paragraphs have no citations. How are we supposed to know the basis for the paragraphs where you don't include a citation? Objection. If I'm not using a citation, then it comes from personal knowledge rather than academia, rather than having to reference something. Understood. Let's look at 108. Okay. So you see it lists academic materials. Yes. Are all the academic papers that you used that you relied on for the purposes of your report? Yes, I believe so. Okay. And if you look at page 109, there is a report by, you cite an article by Belutta, right? Yes. Okay, you see there's an article by Belutta, right? Fritz, are you looking at page 108, Meryl? Nope, I'm looking at, oh, you know what? It might be the new report. Sorry, I'm working off the old report. Yep. 108, you see Belutta. I do. And it's called Investigating Coordinated Account Creation Using Burst Detection and Network Analysis. Do you see that? Yes. Okay, that's in the article. It's in the Journal of Big Data. That wasn't one of the journals that you read regularly. It's not one of the ones I read. It's not one of the ones I listed earlier, no. Is it one of the ones you read regularly? No. Let's go to your report, paragraph 20. Okay. Let me just make sure it's still 20. You see that there is a footnote there at the end of paragraph 20 to footnote 2. Yes. You see that it's unlike the other title, which was Investigating Coordinated Account Creation Using Burst Detection and Network Analysis. This has a different title. Why is that? I don't know. I would have to check to see the copy of the article that I provided on what the actual name is. Well, it can't be both, right? Objection. I would say not. Is this what a hallucinated site looks like? It has plausible but factually incorrect information. Fritz objects. I'm sorry, hallucinated site or citation? Hallucinated site, is there a difference? I'm not sure what a hallucinated site is. That's why I wanted to clarify. Okay, well, is this a hallucination? Fritz objection. I wouldn't say that, no. I would say it's probably wrong if the two don't match, but I wouldn't say it's hallucination. Well, what is the explanation for the two not matching? Objection. A possible error. Okay, well, let's look at one of the articles that your counsel provided us. I'm going to move and mark exhibit, where are we, 5? Yes, we're on exhibit 5. Okay, I'm going to introduce exhibit 5, and it should be in marked exhibits if you can open that. Yes, I have it. What is this? It appears to be from the Journal of Computational Science. It's an article, the Coordination Network Toolkit. The Coordination Network Toolkit, a framework for detecting and analyzing coordinated behavior, right? On social media, yes. This is from the Journal of Computational Social Science. If you look at the top, that's right? That's what's listed, yes. This is also not one of the journals you regularly read. No. And if you look at the top, it says 7.1139 to 1160. Do you see that? Yes. What do those numbers 1139 to 1160 indicate? It should be the journal, the page, I'm not sure. The page number where the journal starts, where the article starts. Objection. Honestly, I can't remember how that is usually signified, but something to that effect, yes. Let's go to the next page and you will see 1140. Does that help explain what those numbers indicated? Yes, so I'm assuming it's the page, yes. So the pages of this particular article is 1139 to 1160 in the Journal of Computational Social Science? Yes. Who are the authors of this paper? Timothy Graham, Sam Hames, and Elizabeth Alpert. Okay, and those are the only 3 authors listed here, right? Yes, on this publication, yes. Are you familiar with who those individuals are? No. Do you know anything about the quality of their research? No. How did you identify this article? Objection. I don't know how I identified it. How did you know about it? It could have been one of the ones that have it. I have a myriad of references to different articles. I understand, but how did you decide to review this article for purposes of your report? Objection. Witness, I'm not sure how I selected this particular article. Again, just to add as well, this is a bit concerning that she doesn't know how she selected articles that she is relying on in her own report. Governski, well, who would have selected it for you? Objection. I would have selected it for myself. How did you find it? I have, as I mentioned, I have a lot of articles that I have read, I've clipped, I have numerous articles that I've read previously and I store, and then I usually sort through them. I understand, but you don't have a recollection of doing this with respect to this article. I don't have a recollection of how I chose a specific article. Okay, did you read the entirety of this paper? Probably not recently, but yes, at some point. Well, recently, like at some point, what do you mean? I didn't review this for the deposition. I would have read this probably months ago, but yes. You said you were retained in September, October. Did you read it since then? Yes. So can you summarize the contents of this paper for me, please? Objection. Witness, I cannot offhand. Pritz, you wanted to read the entire article now? No, Miss Alexander, you cite this article multiple times in your report. I'm asking for you to summarize it. Pritz, do you want her to read it first? No, she supposedly read it as she was preparing her report, Kevin. Miss Alexander, I'm asking you to please summarize the article that you cited multiple times. Objection. The witness, I understand that. So the article in and of itself is about coordinated networks and the toolkit that the authors use to identify them. I believe that would be a succinct summary. Governski, okay. And what are some of the specific tools that they identify? Objection. I don't know this particular one just offhand. Okay, can you name some of the tools that this article identifies? One from the toolkit? No. Okay, does this paper provide any formal definition of coordinated behavior in social media? I would have to go through and read it again. Okay, well, as you reviewed it for the purposes of your report, did you rely on any definition in this article for coordinated behavior in social media? For this one, I'm not sure. As you sit here today, can you explain how this paper defines coordinated behavior in social media? Fritz, you want her to review the article. Governski, Kevin, stop with the speaking objections. Fritz, I just want to make sure the question is clear. Governski, no, Fritz, sorry. Governski, she cited this. I'm entitled to her information that she has in her recollection today about this article. Fritz, please try not to interrupt me. I just want to make sure that the witness and I both understood what you were asking her. If you're asking her from memory, then we understood. Governski, Ash, please repeat back my question, which said, as you sit here today. Fritz, sorry, I don't know why you interrupted me again. I excused it the first time because I thought it was a mistake. Now I'm learning it might not be. So you should just make clear whether you want her to go from memory or you want her to read the article. That's all I'm asking. Mr. Fritz, you should stop with your speaking objections. Ash, please read back the question I asked. The court reporter. All right. Last question. As you sit here today, can you explain how this paper defines coordinated behavior in social media? Fritz, so sitting here today, you wanted to scroll through the entire thing. Governski, Mr. Fritz, please stop with the speaking objections. No, I'm going to have to call the court. It's my deposition. Stop with the speaking objections. Miss Alexander, as you, then Fritz says, we can call the court if you'd like, because you keep interrupting me. Oh my God. Governski, Miss Alexander, as you sit here today, then Fritz interrupts. I just want to understand your question. Governski, as she sits here today, I'm entitled to her recollection as she sits here today. Fritz, just so the record is clear, you do not want her to read the article now. Governski, no, she relied on it in her report. As you sit here today, can you please repeat the question back, Ash, because Mr. Fritz's 1 minute long speaking objection has distracted me from what the actual question was. Fritz, I just wanted to make sure we're all understanding what your question was. Governski, Mr. Fritz, stop with the speaking objections. Ash, please repeat back the question. The reporter then rereads the question. As you sit here today, can you explain how this paper defines coordinated behavior in social media? Fritz, objection. The witness, I cannot offhand without going through and referencing the paper. Governski, okay, you cite this article in page 87 as the only source for your claim that, quote, coordinated influence operations exhibit distinctive network fingerprints, tight temporal synchronization, limited participant dispersion, high clustering coefficients, and centralized network structures with identifiable command and control hubs. Please identify what parts of this article you use to support that statement. Objection. Specifically, I would have to go through to reference the page and the location of. I would have to look to see how I used it within the report and then go through the paper to see how I cited it. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go to 109 in your report. Fritz, are you saying you want her to read the article now? Governski, no, go to 109 of your report is what I said. Paragraph 109, I'm sorry. Let's go to paragraph 87. What? Okay, are you at paragraph 87 of your report? Yes. You refer to Graham et al. Do you see that? Yes. You have a footnote 11. Do you see that? Yes. If you can look at this footnote, it says Graham et al. And you see the title here, right? Detecting Coordination Networks in Social Media. Do you see that? Yes. So that's a different title than we just discussed, which was the Coordination Network Toolkit, a framework for detecting and analyzing coordinated behavior on social media, right? You can go back and look at Exhibit 5, okay? And you can see the two titles don't match again, right? Fritz, objection. To what I have listed in the references. Governski, no, the actual article. Okay. The actual article, you've read the title as being the Coordination Network Toolkit, a framework for directing and analyzing coordinated behavior on social media. That's not the same as detecting coordination networks in social media, right? Objection. That is not. So why is there different titles here? I'm not sure. She's picking up on sloppiness, which is fair. Okay. And then we talked about the page numbers. And we talked about the page numbers 1139 and 1160 represent the number of pages that reflect this article, right? Yes. Okay, let's look at this footnote. You cite pages 23 to 47. Do you see that? I do. And those are the page numbers that you say supports this statement. And then she reads, these findings align closely with recent computational social science research, which is the sentence I just read. So please direct me to pages 23 to 47 in Exhibit 5. So I'm assuming this is an error, but that's not part of your exhibit. Those numbers don't match the exhibit that your counsel provided to us, right? It doesn't match the paper that I submitted, no. Is this a hallucinated citation? Objection. No, I wouldn't call it hallucinated because it's an actual paper. It's incorrect on the way that it was picked up for the title and the year. So it says Graham et al. But if you listed authors who were not authors who appeared, would that be an indication of a hallucination? I'm sorry, if I listed authors that did not appear on the publication. So I think you're using the word hallucination. That is not hallucination to me. That is incorrect. But hallucination is different. Well, if a citation includes authors who were not authors of the paper, wouldn't that be hallucination? Objection. By definition, no. If it made up authors who are not the authors, that would not be a hallucination? Objection. If a generative AI solution made up authors, then yeah, that would be hallucination. Okay, so let's take a look at Exhibit 55, which we've already talked about. And we talked about the three authors. You recall that Graham, Hames, and Alpert. Do you recall that those were the only three authors identified in this article? In the one that we're looking at, yes. Okay, so let's go back to your report, which is Exhibit 002, and go to page 108. I'm going to share my screen, so it's a little easier. Oh, I'm showing my screen, I guess. And you see right here, Graham, this is the article that we're talking about, right? Detecting Coordination Networks in Social Media, Journal of Computational Social Science. Do you see that? Yes. Okay. And you see that it lists additional authors here, Bruns, Zhu, and Campbell. Do you see that? Yes. Those authors were not in the article, right? On the article we looked at, no, they were not. Well, do you have any reason to believe that the other article that your counsel provided to us as this article is not the article that you intended to reference here? No, I believe it is the article I intended to reference. So how can you explain a citation that makes up authors who are not authors identified in the article? Objection. I'm sorry, Kevin? You can answer. Oh, there are just a couple of things wrong. So in general, it's just incorrect. I mean, outside of the author of the date is also correct. So, right. So you just said earlier that if a citation were to include authors who did not appear on the article, it would be a sign of hallucination. Objection. How is that not the case here? So I believe I said that if something was developed through a generative AI solution that added authors, it would be an example of hallucination. And how do you know that's not the case here? Because I know this wasn't generated by generative AI. Oh, is she trying to suggest that this woman's report was generated by AI? That would not be good if it was. Okay, well, let's look at that. Let's look at the paragraph that you cite this for, paragraph 86. Objection. Sorry, 87. This is the same paragraph we've been looking at, right, where you cite Graham. Oh, by the way, have you ever applied the concepts that you cite Graham for in your professional life? I'm sorry, which concepts are we specifically talking about? The concepts that you reference here in this paragraph 87. So, temporal synchronization, yes. Participant dispersion, yes. And command and control hubs, yes. Okay, but when you applied those concepts, were you relying on Graham? As a practitioner, no. So my colleague is going to be moving into a document which I will mark as Exhibit 6. Let me know when you have it. Autumn, are you here? I'm here. I just entered it in. It says it's been introduced. Okay, do you have that document, Exhibit 6, up? It's downloading right now. Okay, I'm also sharing my screen. Let me know when you have it. I can look at your screen. It's taken a while to download. Okay, this is a GPT-0 report, and you will see it has the exact verbatim of paragraph 87. Can you see that? Can you zoom in? Right here. And she reads, these findings align closely with recent computational social science research. And you will see that it is the same citation to Graham that we just looked at in paragraph 87. Okay, and at the top it states that we are highly confident this text is AI generated and lists AI probability at 100%. Do you see that? I see that. Do you have any explanation for GPT-0's finding that it is 100% probability that paragraph 87 is AI generated? Fritz objects. The witness, no. You have no explanation for that? Objection. I do not. As I mentioned earlier, I don't believe in AI analysis for the use of identifying if something is generative AI. I think we talked about that earlier. So if Grammarly found the same paragraph had a 70% chance of being generated by AI, would that change your perception at all? So Grammarly has a feature that also has an AI checker. Which again is similar to what I mentioned earlier with the accuracy of overall AI checkers. Okay. So what about the fact that GPT-0 predicted this paragraph was 100% likely to be AI and Grammarly predicted this paragraph to be 70%? Your response is both GPT-0 and Grammarly must be inaccurate? Objection. So I don't think it's about this. I don't think it's about the inaccuracy. I think it's about the AI generator checks not simply being accurate. And research outside of my statement has also seen this to be true. Okay. Okay, and then a third AI checker, TextGuard, found this one paragraph to be 86% likely to be AI. So I'm just trying to understand, is it your testimony that this is just a coincidence? Objection. My testimony is that AI generated checkers are inadequate and not accurate. How come the paragraphs in your report that describe your background all come back as human generated? Objection. I do not know why. And why did the reports in Dr. Maislin report come back as 0% AI generated? Objection. I couldn't answer that. Do you have any explanation for why GPT-0 would predict that 101 paragraphs of your report have a 100% probability of being AI? Wow, this is not good. This is not good for wayfarers, for their expert at all. Governski, right? Lover or hater, she has done a magnificent job of absolutely ripping apart her credentials, but also her entire report. And she has, come with receipts to say, hey, your report appears to have been something that you knocked up using ChatGPT. This is not a good look. Wow. Fritz, objection. Witness, I couldn't answer that. I bet you couldn't. Governski, do you have any explanation for why GPT-0 predicted that an additional 28 paragraphs of your report had a 90% probability of being AI? Objection. I still can't answer that. And do you have any explanation for why GPT predicted that another 35 paragraphs of your report had an 80% probability of being AI? Objection. I can't answer. Wow. Governski, all right, I've got to give it to her. She is absolutely destroying her here. Again, there are many more pages to go for this, so I would hope that it turns around, but up to this point, I'm really disappointed in this witness, and I am very impressed by Governski. Governski, so do you have any explanation for why 164 paragraphs out of 200 in your report had an 80% likelihood of being AI? Objection. I don't know. Okay, let's go back to your report where you cite Graham again, and I'm sharing it on my screen for easy use. Do you see paragraph 97? I would use the exhibit share, Ms. Alexander. I'm there. Okay, and you see that in the first paragraph, you cite Graham, Howard, and Woolley and Ferrara. Do you see that? I do. Okay, what is the Howard and Woolley article? I would have to go back to reference the documents or the articles that I submitted. And as you sit here today, based on your recollection, what is this article about? I can't tell you offhand, but I would have to reference the article itself. And that's another problem, right? It's not just that that the AI checking like software is saying that her chunks of her report, paragraphs of her report are 100%, 90%, 80% likely to be AI generated. Is that when she is being asked about the reports that she herself is citing, she should be able to recall this. She should know what she's talking about, but she doesn't appear to have any recollection, which tells me that I think Governski's onto something. That this woman so far has been paid, what was it, nearly $90,000, and she's billed for a lot more money to basically have a report knocked out by ChatGPT. This is really not good. As you sit here today, can you explain why the Howard and Woolley article support the statements in this paragraph? Objection. The witness, I cannot. Why can't you? You're the expert. Governski, what about Ferrara et al.? What do you recall about that article? I'd have to look at the article. As you sit here today, do you have any recollection about that what that article was about? Objection. I don't know offhand. And as you sit here today, do you have any recollection for how the article by Ferrara supports any of the statements in paragraph 97? Objection. Without referencing the article, no. Governski, and did you write this paragraph? Yes. Every word? So the citations themselves I got from Sotero, but yes, the copy itself, yes. Governski, any idea how GPT-0 would predict the likelihood of this paragraph? Objection. I don't know. Would you be surprised to learn that GPT-0 projected that this paragraph was 100% likely to be AI generated? Jesus. Objection. I'm sorry, what was the question there? I apologize. Would you be surprised to learn that GPT-0 predicted that there was 100% likelihood that this paragraph was AI generated? Objection. It wouldn't surprise or not surprise me. What? It should surprise you. Oh no. Governski. Okay, and then TextGuard also found that this paragraph was 92% most likely to be AI generated. Would that surprise you? Objection. Same answer. I wouldn't be surprised or not surprised. Governski. Okay, and so these bullets here, and then she reads centralized amplification hubs, temporal synchronization, sentiment homogeneity. You wrote, is your testimony that you wrote these bullets? Yes. Okay. and there's no citation for these bullets. So is this just one of those examples where the basis for these are just your own experience? Yes. Those are also some of the same verbiage I used earlier when we talked about the work that I did at Meta as well as Ipsos. Right, so that verbiage, and when you talked about it earlier, that's not based on academia. That's just based on your own experience. That's based on that's based on my expert experience, yes. And not academia, right? I believe this is also associated in academia. Yes, correct. What academia? I'm sorry, what do you mean by what academia? What academia supports these specific bullets that we've been discussing? There is research around account clustering, sentiment homogeneity, I can't say it, homogeneity across data analysis and computational science. Okay, and what is that? What is that academia? I believe you're asking if I can cite the authors and or a paper. I can't do that offhand. I'm asking for the basis of the bullets that don't include a citation. Objection. It's from my lived experience as well. I believe norms across social analysis of social media in academia as well. Okay, but you can't, as you sit here today, cite any academia that supports these specific bullets. Objection. I can't provide an author and a paper offhand. I'm not asking for the paper and the author, but just what academia supports those specific bullets. Fritz, same objection. Maybe I don't understand the question when you say which academia. So looking at marketing and social analysis in academia, right, which is a discipline. So there's been research done to show coordinated fingerprinting. Hold on, sorry. So looking at marketing and social analysis in academia, right, which is a discipline. So there's been research done to show coordinated fingerprinting in academia as well as on the practitioner side. I'm trying to identify and understand what academia you really relied on when you came up with this bulleted list. The bulleted list is based on my lived experience, as I mentioned, but it's also supported in addition in academic research. And I'm entitled to know what academic research you relied on for coming up with these bullets. Objection. So I think I'm saying the same thing over and over again. So it's based on the research that I've done myself as a practitioner. And in addition to that, I also believe that there is research on these particular elements across marketing science and social analysis. I do not have, before you ask, I do not have a citation to offer you offhand. So your report does not disclose the academia on which you relied on for these paragraphs in paragraph 97. Objection. That's incorrect. So, as I stated, what is the academia? Yeah, go on, sorry. It's based on my experience as a practitioner, period. I'm saying I also believe in addition to that being the basis of the bullets, I also believe that there is academic research that supports it as well. But that's a belief based on your intuition and not what is cited in your report. Objection. It's based on my understanding of articles I've read across academia of different conferences, a myriad of other things. And do you understand that you're required to identify all of the academia that supports the opinions that you're offering in this case? Objection. I understand that if I'm using academic sources, as I mentioned in my last answer, these bullets, first and foremost, are based on my practitioner experience. And you cannot, as you sit here today, think of the articles that inform these bullets. Objection. Of the citations, no, I cannot. Of referencing the title of a paper and the authors, no, I cannot. And how would you go about finding that out? I would do a scholar search based on keywords. And you can do that? Yes. So why didn't you do that when you were putting together Appendix C? So as I mentioned, for this particular content, again, it's based on practitioner work, which would not be needed for an academic citation. Okay, let's go to your Appendix C, where you again are expected to list all of the materials that form the basis of your opinion. And on page 108, you cite a legal case called Dalbert. Do you see that? Yes. Why did you list Dalbert? Dalbert is something I read early on when the litigation first was presented to me. Why did you read Dalbert? For just research and knowledge. Did you decide on your own to read Dalbert? Fritz. I would instruct the witness, to the extent your answer requires you to disclose substantive communications with counsel, you not reveal that, but independent of that, go ahead. So it was nothing to do with any conversation with counsel. It was something that I did proactively. Oh God. I feel like Fritz just gave her a way of wriggling out of answering that question, and she dodged it. She could have said, no, I can't answer the question, but she didn't. And the problem is, right, is we've already seen Governski kind of pull her apart on what is supposed to be her expert field. Now we're in legal territory, which is Governski's expert field. And this is not going to end well, I don't think. Well, that's what I'm feeling anyway. Governski, okay. How did you learn about Dalbert? Honestly, I think I Googled it. Oh, God. Okay, what prompted you to Google Dalbert? The engagement with GLG. The engagement with GLG, or like 12 years ago, or in this case. When GLG reached out to me regarding a potential litigation case, I Googled it. Okay. And what is your understanding of Dalbert? So I read it a while ago. I can't quote the case, but it talks about methodology, rigor, and being able to, I'm paraphrasing, source and have a chain of custody, I believe. Something to that effect on how you represent information. Oh no, this is not going well. So a very kind of brief overview of the Dalbert case. It was a case that went to the United States Supreme Court, and it basically determined the standard for admitted expert testimony in federal courts. And what happened here? There was a case. The case involved two families. Their children were born with serious birth defects, which they were claiming the defects were caused by the mothers. The mothers were given Bendectin, and the district court granted summary judgment for the defendants, Merrill Dow Pharmaceuticals, citing the lack of general acceptance of the expert evidence. Then the Ninth Circuit on appeal upheld that decision. So the case went to the Supreme Court of the United States. And the Supreme Court held that the federal rules of evidence, not the Fry standard, which was the standard, govern the admissibility of expert scientific testimony. And effectively, this case overturned the Fry standard. So it's interesting. I think Governski finds it interesting. I find it interesting that this expert was looking up that case and cited it in her report. I'm not sure personally, but the fact that Governski is now going after this is I'm not sure how it's gonna go. But let's continue, because this is now interesting. Okay. Oh gosh. Sorry. So, Governski, and is your entire understanding of what Dalbert stands for based on your own Google search? Yes, based on my own reading, correct. Okay. You're not a lawyer. No, I'm not. Do you hold yourself out as an expert on the Dalbert standards? Not at all. So when your ninth opinion states that the methodologies employed in this analysis meet established standards, you have no expertise in determining what meets Dalbert standards, right? Outside of what I read, no. Outside of what you read on Google? Well, actually, outside of what I read on the US Justice website. Okay, you have no independent experience other than having read the case. Correct. And you talk about Dalbert in paragraphs 100 to 106 of your report. And you write, under the Dalbert standard and its progeny, courts evaluate expert methodology based on several criteria. What is your understanding of the Dalbert progeny? So is the case, the components based on what I downloaded and read from the US Justice's website. Okay. And you wrote that sentence under the Dalbert standard and its progeny? Objection. Yes. Okay, would it surprise you that GPT-0 predicted this paragraph to be 100% likely to be AI? Objection. Okay. Is it the word progeny? I'm sorry, I'm confused about that. It's a case, and then it's the word progeny added onto it. So I'm not sure that would be generative AI about what would be generative AI about that. I'm just trying to understand how you come up with the sentence. Under the Dalbert standard and its progeny, courts evaluate expert methodology based on several key criteria. And then she says, it's objection. Again, I probably read it on the Justice's website. Okay, and I don't understand why you were offering an opinion on whether your methodology meets Dalbert's standard if you're not an expert in Dalbert. Can you please explain? Objection. So I added that in specifically to ensure that my work would meet the criteria that would be relevant for the report itself, even though you have no expertise in the Dalbert standards. Outside of what I read, no. Okay, what is your understanding of what your assignment was in this case? Objection. So my assignment was to, as a rebuttal expert, was to review the plaintiff's experts, select expert reports and offer my perspective on if the inferences made on the reports were accurate. If there were areas that I would say made sense, didn't make sense, answering questions around specifically is a campaign inorganic or organic, and offering any additional context in regards to Dr. Maislin's report or Dr. Humphrey's report. Were those terms, organic and inorganic, specifically used when discussing your assignment with you? That term, Fritz, hold on. To the extent the question and your response is calling for disclosure of information that would be protected by attorney-client privilege, I would instruct you not to answer, and that is how I understood the question. Governski, you used the terms organic and inorganic to describe your assignment, right? I did, yes. Okay. And you understood that your assignment was to make the determination between organic and inorganic, those specific words. So that was not the charge. I used that based on the way that I looked at the analysis. Okay, what was the charge? Excuse me, the charge was to... Objection. The charge was to read through Dr. Maislin and Dr. Humphrey's reports and offer any perspective as a rebuttal witness to see if the outcomes, the inferences that they made, or the way that they analyzed the data was accurate or inaccurate. And that was the entire scope of your assignment? Yes, that was the charge I was given. Okay, so when did you receive the expert reports that you were assigned to rebut? I'm not sure of the exact date. I know there was only about 2.5 weeks turnaround. I know there was only about 2.5 weeks turnaround time for November 3rd. So I would say November 3rd, backing that out by 2.5 weeks. Yeah, like October 17th is, I believe, the date that the experts were served. So that sounds about right. So did you and Miss Hunter start your data analysis before that time, or only after you received the reports? After we received the reports. What is your experience with Dr. Maislin? I don't know Dr. Maislin. Have you ever met Dr. Maislin? No. You cite in your report an article by Dr. Maislin. Do you recall reading an article that she wrote? I do. Tell me about it. Objection. I can't recall the name of the article. It's in my report as a footnote. I originally read through the article and was going to use it within the context of my report. I decided not to and removed the commentary but left the footnote. Oh God, this work is so sloppy. So many mistakes in it. Actually infuriating. I would have thought that Wayfarer would have got someone better than this. And you didn't list that actually in your Appendix C. Why is that? Because I didn't end up using her article. But you read her article. I did, in the context of preparing your report. Yes, I read the article. And who told... Sorry, strike that. How did you decide that you didn't need to list it in Appendix C? To my understanding, the materials relied upon was the materials that I relied upon for the final report. So based on the content that was in the final report. So it's your testimony that Appendix C does not include everything that you've reviewed in the course of preparing your report, but only things that you determined you would rely upon. Objection. Correct, I believe, yes. So why did you cite the Maislin study and then keep the citation in your report, but then not list it in your materials considered? Objection. I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question? Yeah, it's your testimony that you didn't list it in Appendix C because you didn't rely on it, but you still cite it as support in your report. So I'm trying to understand why you included it as a citation. Fritz, objection. The witness, because I didn't cite it in my report, I should have removed the footnote when I removed the copy from the report. And I'm going to leave it there and do a part 5, I think. This is getting really spicy. Wow. This has turned out to be a lot more than I was expecting, so not so boring anymore. Right, okay, moving on to part 5, which I will probably upload tomorrow now. Alright guys, have a good evening.